This is the Sons of UCF podcast, your place for UCF sports talk year-round. Now, here is Adam and Mike.
Oh boy, are we back with a vengeance, ladies and gentlemen. After a week off, the Sons of UCF have returned. This is episode number 139. My name is Adam, and as always, Mr. UCF Mike has found his way back from a week off, and he's ready to go. Mike, you promised me a lot of notes this week. I can't wait to see what you have in store, man. Welcome back to episode 139.
Oh, yeah. I haven't been this prepared for a show in a long time, man. Give me a week off? Are you crazy? I'm energized and ready to go. Let's kick this baby off.
All right, well, let's talk about what we're going to kick off. So, Cow of the Week will come up towards the end here. We got some headlines, a little charge on, charge off stuff there as always. A big three foreshadowing the biggest games coming up this year. And you do not want to miss our conversation with Brian Waters, UCF alum, 2006, 2010. He was part of some really big teams. A really good conversation. A lot of times he uses the phrase, I don't know if anybody knows this, but and anytime people say that, it's always a good interview. So you're not going to want to miss Brian Waters coming up as well, Mike. But before you do all of that, make sure you do us one quick favor. Find us on all the social media things, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. We're at Sons of UCF there. Find Mike on Twitter at UCF Mike1. Make sure you follow our website, twonightsmedia.com. And if you're listening to us in any of the 1 million podcast platforms out there, make sure you just subscribe or listen or follow, whatever they ask you to do. If you want to drop a rating on it while you're there, we won't be mad at you, Mike. That's I think I got it all figured out now. Is that all I need to plug here?
I think that's everything. So let's on with the show. This is
all right. Mike's he's ready to go. I don't want to hold him up much longer, Mike. So let's do some headlines here. I didn't prepare you for this, but we'll do them charge on, charge off style. So hopefully those notes of yours hold up pretty closely, Mike. And recruiting seems to be the spot where people want to talk about the most right now. Obviously, the dead period just came to an end. UCF is starting to hopefully get some recruits in, Mike. But let me give everyone a quick recap on recruiting if you're not aware. So since the last time we spoke, we had Nakai Martinez, 4-star defensive back out of Apopka. He agreed to come to UCF. He's staying home. And then defensive lineman Keenis Thompson out of Lakeland. He also is coming to UCF. But, like, UCF misses out on a few guys, too. Tyrus Washington goes to Arkansas. Grant Stevens goes to Coastal Carolina. And Zane Durant goes to Penn State. But we pick up some guy in the transfer portal on Monday. Mike Jarvis Ware from Missouri is now coming to UCF, Mike. So a lot of player movement, but unfortunately the high school recruiting, I don't know if it's keeping up, Mike. So here's your charge on, charge off. High school recruiting so far has been a disappointment. Do you charge on or charge off?
Oh, well, charge off. I'm not disappointed. Like we say every week, it's still very early. And we just signed a big 4-star player, Nakai Martinez. You mentioned him. Out of Apopka. A local kid, a hometown hero, as Coach Gus likes to call him. We beat out Florida and South Carolina for this kid. And a position of need, cornerback, the secondary. I think that's probably one of our biggest question marks coming into this season. This guy can be a playmaker out there. We like to call ourselves DBU. Maybe this guy is next in the line for that as a shutdown corner here for us. But this could lead to other local kids. So that's what we've been trying to do, right, is build up the state of Orlando, all the kids on the I-4 corridor. This kid falls right into that, and him staying home may lead to some other kids making that same decision. We're still in the running for the 3 Stanford kids, the Henderson twins, and Cam Moore, who's Bam Moore's brother. So I'm charging off with that statement. I'm happy with where things are going, and I think they're going to only get better from here.
Yeah, I mean, if you follow a couple of the recruiting guys on social media, they're all saying that a slew of announcements could be coming soon. A lot of kids are going to want to start locking in their decision after basically being able to get out for the first time in 15 months. And UCF's in a lot of these conversations, Mike. Obviously, some of the kids that we lost out on. There's some thought that maybe we processed a few, to borrow a phrase from Brandon Helwig. But the transfer portal is kind of the unknown here, Mike. This is also a stat courtesy of Brandon Helwig. We've had 13 portal additions since the offseason. 12 of those have come under the Gus Malzahn era, with Brandon Johnson being the only difference. 6 of those guys have SEC experience. So while maybe the high school recruiting stuff isn't happening, talent is still coming in. And again, that's evidenced by Jarvis Ware, who agrees to come to UCF today. Again, he's also from Apopka as well, Mike, on a coincidence. coming off an ACL injury at Missouri, where he's got 2 years of eligibility remaining at UCF. So the transfer portal certainly seems to be pretty ripe for UCF. But you're absolutely right. I think it might not be as much about the stars involved in the guys that we're recruiting and the location or the areas that we're at, right? Because if we're keeping those kids in Central Florida, that's got to be a big win. And if it's not a big win for this year, maybe it pays off down the road.
Right. The transfer portal may pay off in a couple of years. Say we're losing these battles out. You mentioned the kids that didn't sign with us decided to go elsewhere. A year from now, 2 years from now, may say, hey, maybe I made a mistake, and I've already built up this relationship with Coach Malzahn and Coach T. Will. Maybe I'll go over and transfer to UCF, and that's what we're seeing happen now. This kid Jarvis Ware, who played for Missouri, I mean, you got to think that Gus knows him from his days in the SEC. He's probably talked to him a few times before. So just because we're not landing everybody straight out of high school doesn't mean eventually they won't end up here. And transfer portal is a big part of college football now. So that's where we're going to have to get a lot of playmakers from. And this kid right here, Jarvis Ware, looks like he's ready to come in. He's got a lot of experience. He didn't just sit the bench in Missouri. He was getting a lot of playing time over there. He can come right in a position of need for us and make an impact this year.
And you mentioned UCF still in the running for a bunch of kids who have not yet declared, so there's still obviously opportunity for us to build on our class. For context, 24/7 Sports has us ranked as the third best recruiting class in the American Conference. Cincinnati is by a wide margin number one, according to 24/7. And then SMU is at number two. They recently signed I think it was a 4 or 5 star guy as well. But Cincinnati already has 14 recruits in. So UCF only has 8, I think, on the board right now. So obviously their composite's a little bit higher. And again, that's just first year high school recruits only. So, but there still is plenty of time, Mike. And I guess, can you understand, or do you think it's fair that some fans are getting a little bit antsy when we're not seeing as much momentum as maybe we thought we might?
I mean, people are going to find a reason to complain for everything, right? But I think our ranking jumped up from the 70s up to, 36 or 40, something like that. We made a pretty good jump when we signed Martinez. And one of the big things he mentioned in his article when he's committed to UCF was how Gus is pushing the playoff, the playoff expansion, and how UCF is going to be competing for a spot there every year. I think he's going to get more and more kids to buy into that. And if you do it with the local kids, even better. Right? Because how often do we always hear people complain that, oh, this kid's not from Florida? Well, now we're getting Florida kids. We're getting 4-star kids from Florida, local guys. Eventually, they're going to find something to complain about. Right now, the numbers are not where they like them, but talk to me at the end of the year when signing day actually comes.
All right, you guys come find UCF Mike at UCF Mike 1, and he wants to hear from you. But overall, I think, yes. Would we like to have more recruits on the board? Sure, probably. Would we have loved one of these kids to commit? I think Tyrus Washington was a guy UCF was really high on. I think Grant Stevens was kind of second in line, and he went to Coastal before Tyrus decided. Zane Durant was a guy I think people thought we had a good shot at, but unfortunately he chose Penn State over UCF, and I think Miami as well. So, but come find Mike when it's all said and done. Obviously, recruiting still in full force, and we'll keep waiting and seeing. There could be more booms down the road, so keep an eye on or your ear out there for Boom Watch, Mike. But let's get to the second headline. So we are now, let me look at my calendar here, 11 days in to the new name, image, and likeness era in college football. Obviously, UCF has been impacted. I think I have a lot of these down, Mike, so let me see if I missed any. You can keep me honest here. We have guys, Caden Robinson, Jalen Griffin, Isaiah Bowser, Darius Perry, and Dylan Gabriel all started some form of an apparel line. They all have some sort of merchandise, apparel, hats, shirts, sweatshirts, whatever that might be out there. We've seen those kind of come out. Then we have guys, Cam Good, Quade Mosier, and Darren Green. They've signed sponsorship deals with businesses. Cam Good has some sort of a convenience store opportunity in West Palm Beach. Quade Mosier, a restaurant in Arkansas, and Darren Green with a shoe store here in Orlando, Mike. And obviously, Dylan Gabriel had a pretty big launch with his DG the brand. They were saying that sales are doing pretty well. He signed a deal with Rock'em Socks Apparel for some DG socks, Mike. So the first week of NIL is in, and so here's the statement for you, Mike. After really 11 days of NIL, you think things are going just as you expected them to go from a deal perspective? Charge on or charge off?
I can't really answer either way because I didn't know what to expect. So from what I expected, sure, charge on. You see the big name guys, Dylan Gabriel's on the team. Darren Green in basketball, those guys signing deals with people that you expect. Some guys that, you didn't expect, or lesser names on the team getting deals here. I think that's something that kind of took me a little by surprise. And that was a big theme all around college sports. Some of the biggest signings were for, I guess, women's sports and people that you didn't really know as superstars, but maybe have a big following on Instagram and have a lot of followers on Twitter. And companies are seeing the potential of giving these kids a deal and making some money off them. As for our team, I mean, it's still very early, and these kids are trying to figure things out just like we are and just like the companies are. I don't know what to think after 2 weeks. Maybe once the season gets started and some of these kids' names are out there more, they're on TV every week, maybe able to crack a deal here and there with some other companies.
Yeah, actually, I should have also mentioned the entire women's basketball team signed with, I think it's College Hunks, the moving company. And so they signed there, and there's a women's college basketball player that signed with Barstool Sports. She's a Barstool athlete. I don't know what that means yet. I'm not sure how all that works. So there have been a handful of deals that have been signed out there, Mike. I think it's interesting, like you said. I think the Quaden Mosier deal is really interesting to me because he's a guy who did not really play at all last year. I think he got some time on the field, but not a lot at all. But obviously he's from a small town in Arkansas, and it sounds like maybe this is a local kind of deal where his name still carries some weight in Arkansas. I think this is an interesting kind of deal in my opinion because it wouldn't be a name that you would have thought, right? But yet here he is signing something because his name carries weight. I wonder how much more of that we can see of guys being able to just capitalize on sort of their small town fame or their fame somewhere to sign deals. I don't know how much the merch game is going to be profitable for all these guys. I mean, right now Dylan Gabriel seems to be giving a pretty hearty go. For the rest of these guys, no disrespect, I don't know how lucrative the merch game will be, but I'm curious to see if more of sort of the smaller type deals of a Cam Good or a Quaden Mosier type deal can come to pass.
Right, and then you're seeing full teams getting deals. You mentioned the women's basketball team. What about the University of Miami? American Top Team is paying everybody on that team, $6,000 for the year? Just every scholarship athlete. I wonder if there's a company in Orlando that wants to get involved somehow with UCF and get all these guys paid at some point.
Yeah, that's interesting. Again, I think there's a lot of things that people are trying to figure out. I mean, we've seen some guys sign some big deals. De'Ara King is signing a bunch of deals. Mackenzie Milton was selling his NFT cards for a pretty hefty price. Masterpiece son Hersey Miller signed like a $2 million deal of some sort. Spencer Rattler signed a deal with Raising Cane's, which is a food company in sort of the South area there. So it'll be curious to see kind of when this happens and what, if anything, does the NCAA need to govern, and is it really going to be a free for all? Are we really just going to let things be whatever they want to be?
All right, and some of the big superstars. Can you imagine if this was around when Tim Tebow was playing or Johnny Football? Those guys would have made, not even exaggerating, millions of dollars in endorsements. And the potential is there. And Dylan Gabriel obviously is the biggest name on our team. Say he goes out there this year and has a Heisman season, where he's in top 5 for the Heisman voting this year. Does that change his mind and coming back next year and capitalizing on that and having a whole year of marketing behind them and companies not want to get behind them and put some money on there? I mean, if he's not thought of as a first-round draft pick, I think that's something for him to really think about and come back and make some money and get another year in college and have some fun.
One thing I'm a little bit interested in, too, is De'Ara King seems to be doing a lot of strange things or unique things. Maybe strange isn't the right word. Like, he's doing his own podcast. Him and a linebacker from Miami have signed on to do a podcast together. I don't know who it's through or how they're marketing yet, but that's an interesting angle as well. If he gets sponsorships through that, direct access to fans, he might put guys like you and I out of business, man. Should we be scared about that?
Yeah, I mean, not like we're making all kinds of money doing this ourselves. Not really taking money off the table for us, but anything these kids can do to make money, this is a great opportunity for them, and maybe it opens up another career path for him after college. And he's good at doing a podcast, and maybe he lands a job with an ESPN or a Fox Sports or whatever it is, and He can be an analyst here or there or whatever it is. He doesn't even have to do that. Maybe his podcast alone is successful enough to make some money on. So good for him. I'm not worried about. Would you be worried of some other UCF player? I mean, there's already 100 UCF podcasts out there. But if some players came out with a podcast, I think that just generates more interest. So you listen to the Dylan Gabriel podcast and you say, oh, man, that's pretty cool. And then what pops up next? Hey, the Sons of UCF, let's give these guys a listen. And I think the more the better.
Yeah, I just think it's interesting all the unique ideas that are coming out of it. I think that's what's kind of fun and invigorating is, you're seeing guys try new things. You're seeing companies try new things. You wonder how long it'll hold on or if it'll have anything from a lucrative perspective for the company. Will the barbecue joint in Arkansas see a significant uptick in sales due to Quade Mosier? Will the convenience store situation in West Palm Beach see a huge uptick due to Cam Good? We'll see how all that stuff plays out. And then you still have a company like Dreamfield, who we've had on our show a few times. Mike, we had him on the pod, had him on the live show. And obviously they're trying to do some things, having you sign up as an athlete through their portal and then, get opportunities to do things there. So there's all kinds of unique stuff. And I think it's going to be interesting to see how it all kind of gets played out. But so far, I mean, UCF has a bunch of guys in the mix. And again, kudos to these guys for giving it a shot. I know the merch game is going to be really tough, I think, to keep up. But kudos for these guys giving it a shot, and hopefully they, can stick with it and figure something out at some point.
The big question is going to be, who is the Sons of UCF player that's going to be on here? I think we eventually will probably land on something and get a deal done with one of these kids. Maybe, you never know. And who's going to sign a deal with Sons of UCF?
Yeah, I mean, we're open to suggestions, obviously, within our price range here, right? We're open to anything. Really, I mean, I'm just interested in, interesting guys who will give us insight on what happens on practice and on the field and all that stuff. And so, you never, there's so many options out there, Mike, that, it'll be cool to see, which opportunities present themselves. And if we get involved somehow, that'll be fun too. I guess you never know what we're going to do. Could be the Sons of UCF show featuring, backup linebacker here. Who knows?
Yeah. Some of these guys may not have the time or want to do a full podcast on their own, but maybe they do want to get their voice out there a little bit for a few minutes a week. You never know. Keep tuning in and we'll see what happens.
All right, Mike, let's go from that to men's basketball. Some interesting news these last couple of weeks have kind of trickled in. First, we hear Darius Perry is returning to UCF. Brandon Mahan decided to come back to UCF. And then we finally got word that Isaiah Adams and CJ Walker as well have pulled out of the draft, and they will also be returning to UCF, Mike. So UCF basketball will be returning a slew of guys. So basically, their top 9 scorers from last season, including Tony Johnson, who only played 30 minutes of basketball, they are all returning from last year, adding in freshman Darius Johnson, Time Freeman, PJ Edwards, Xavier Rhodes, and the transfer in Chiak Makdong. There's a lot of talent, Mike, at UCF basketball. A lot of guys coming back. So here's your charge on, charge off, Mike. This is a tournament team next season. Charge on or charge off?
I think it better be. I want to charge on for this one. This is the best roster we've had since the last time we were in the big dance, right? In 18-19 season. You mentioned some of the guys coming back. Darius Perry, I think, is a big addition. Well, not addition, but him coming back is a big thing for this team. He was our best offensive player last year, especially late in the season. He really started taking things over. CJ Walker, I think, is probably the best athlete on the team. His ability to block shots and rebounds. He really needs to improve his offensive game a little bit because he was just throwing up bricks a lot of times offensively. But he's a very good player. Looks like he brings a lot of energy to the court, that's for sure. Darren Green, I think, having a bounce back season. Not to say last year was bad, but it wasn't as good as the year before. And I think the expectations that we all had for him were a little higher than what he did last year. But the potential is always there with him. You mentioned Tony Johnson coming back healthy. Isaiah Adams, to me, is the best scorer on the team, and I'm excited to see where this kid goes the next year. A lot of depth now on this team. I think it can definitely be a dance team, but they got to put it all together. They got to stay healthy.
Well, that's the first thing is I'd like to charge on to this, right? Because you look at those names, the talent that we have, and you say to yourself, man, if this was our squad, we should be able to compete deep into the American Conference tournament, and that should get us a chance at the NCAA tournament. But the reality is, A, injuries have always been a problem for us, and B, while a lot of these guys are coming back, Mike, we didn't have the greatest season with some of these guys last year, and not because they're not good players, because we never figured out how to get them all to play together. There's a lot of isolation ball that required Darius Perry to jack up a lot of shots, and luckily he made a lot of those. Brandon Mahan, he had 32 points against Florida State, but then he disappeared in a few games down the stretch. You mentioned TJ Walker. At that point, they just basically left him open from the outside and dared him to shoot. Darren Green was a tad off at times. Jamil Reynolds, we didn't mention him yet, big man inside. He came along late during the season. We did not have a ton of depth last year. We only were playing 7 and 8 guys. Sean Mobley, one game he'd throw some of the best passes you've ever seen. The next game he'd kick the ball off his foot. So how do we get these guys to play together, I think, is going to be the really interesting thing about it. What will the offense look like? Will another season of them getting used to each other, knowing where they're going to be on the floor? Will Dawkins have a better offensive fit for these guys? Can we get open shots for guys like Darren Green? Will we have too much one-on-one hero ball? It's going to be really interesting to see. I did see on social media where CJ Walker was in the gym working on his jump shot, which I think is fantastic. As you mentioned, his offensive game was somewhat limited to around the rim. So if he can add a little jumper to his game, that'll be fantastic. But listen, college is different than the NBA, right? The NBA is a lot of high pick and roll, a lot of mismatches, getting guys open for threes. College, they pack the lane a little bit more, and they kind of, they sort of dare you to shoot and drive. And so, we have all the talent, but can we put them all together on the same page, Mike? I think that'll be the ultimate thing to figure out. I don't know if you saw anything last year that makes you go, yep, we can do it this year. And so that's where I'm a little hesitant, because on paper, this should be a tournament team, but we didn't really see that gel last year at too often. And granted, it was COVID. Granted, a lot of guys missed. But can they put it all together this year?
Right. And the one thing that drove us nuts all last year was the turnovers. And a lot of this basketball is just don't make the most mistakes. Whichever team plays the cleanest game, a lot of times, is going to have a big chance to win. And a lot of times last year, we found ways to lose games that I thought we should have won. The Wichita State games, both, I believe, 1-point games, we had both of those. And we found a way to lose them. The first game against the Cows where we lost, we were up at the half, and we found a way to let them come back and beat us. There's a handful of games like that where this team, if they learn how to win and learn how to play together, play cleaner games, not turn the ball over when it counts, there's a bunch of wins there that go our way. If we can get those to go our way this year, I think we're in the dance. I think we have a shot. We're in a good enough conference where if we're in the top 3, maybe even 4, we can be an at-large team. So the potential is there with this team. Now you got to put it all together.
You are the king of getting the hot seat in the vicinity of where Johnny Dawkins is currently standing or sitting. But I think this is the year, Mike. He has the ability as a coach to find a way to put it all together, and hopefully injuries kind of will stay away this year, Mike. This is the season that we expect a veteran coach like Johnny to look at this talent and say, how do I put this all together? How do I run some offensive stuff for these guys? How do I get them in the right spots? Obviously, we know it's a very athletic team when you have guys like Isaiah Adams and CJ Walker. It's a very athletic group. Tony Johnson was a pretty good athlete before he got hurt 20 minutes into the season. So, plus the young guys. I saw some videos in practice. This Edwards kid and this Freeman kid were dunking all over people. So, there's definitely talent that's out there. And this is what Johnny's here for. This is why he's a veteran coach, paid the big bucks, quote unquote, is to figure out ways to put it all together, Mike. So I'm not saying I'm in the UCF Mike hot seat camp just yet, but I'm not saying I'm not, I guess.
He's been here for a handful of years now already. 5 years, right? Was this season 5, season 6 now coming up for Johnny? Yep. The depth should be there. That's on him now, right? These are his kids. He's brought this whole team in. He's no longer playing with a Donnie Jones roster and kids like that at Taco, where he inherited that first team that he took to the dance. This is all on him now. And the record has gone backwards. It is what it is. The last couple of years, the record's gone backwards. We finished under 500. We got to get that turned around. We got to start playing better in conference. We got to make runs in the conference tournament. We've not been a good tournament team for the last few years. If we can make a deep run there and have a nice, successful season, then you won't hear me talk about the hot seat, because Johnny Dawkins is probably the nicest guy, one of the nicest guys I've ever met. I got a chance to talk to him. I'm rooting for him. I hope he's here for another 10 years. I hope he gets this thing squared away. But if this is another 500 season coming up, then I think you got to start asking those questions.
Well, what the other thing that's interesting, while I'm excited that we're bringing back talent, you also wonder what that does for the young guys, right? So Brandon Mahan, he was in the portal. He was transferred, Mike, right? He was out. You asked Johnny Dawkins about that at the Charge On tour. He sort of kind of coyly answered your question, which maybe that means he knew something we didn't know at that time. But Mahan comes back. Darius Perry was a guy that we thought was gone. He obviously kind of surprisingly comes back. I think we all suspected and hoped that Adams and Walker would come back, but you got to wonder, Perry and Mahan coming back, does that hurt some of the young guys? Darius Johnson, a freshman point guard, Tony Johnson, obviously we haven't seen a bunch. I mentioned Edwards and Freeman. You got to wonder how this will play out during the season. Sean Mobley, again, I think he's a guy that was really talented with the ball at the top of the key, making good reads and good decisions, but didn't always have the best offensive game. How does Johnny figure out how to integrate some of these young guys and get them some practice, get them some run, and will some of these older guys, quote unquote, stunt their growth? I think he's got a tough coaching job in his hands, particularly if these guys are all as talented as they appear to be right now. It'll be really interesting to see how he integrates this all together.
Well, he's got to find his rotation, and he's got to just put the best 5 on the court at all times, and that's his job to figure out what that is. So I'm not worried about guys not getting playing time and figuring that part out. Johnny's got to figure that thing out, and I think he'll be able to do it. I think there's enough talent on this team where remember last year we were only playing 7-8 guys a game. Mm-hmm. So now maybe we'll be able to keep some guys fresher late in the season, or Perry is not playing all 40 minutes and exhausted by the end of the game. So this is a good thing. This is what we've always been saying for the last few years. Now we have the depth. I think that can only help.
Well, I'm cautiously optimistic, Mike. I definitely want the talent is there. I definitely want to see this how this team looks once we're able to get them out on the court. But so some at least some good news coming back to UCF basketball, and we'll see how that translates to things on the field, Mike, or on the court, I guess. But coming up next, we'll bring the big 3 back. We're gonna foreshadow the upcoming football season, and we're gonna save you some time now. We will tell you which games you want to set your DVR to. I don't know if people still set DVRs, but if you do, Mike and I will save you a bunch of time. You can set your DVRs right now. We'll tell you the games you don't want to miss. That's coming up next, Mike, on the Sons of UCF. Don't go anywhere. Not you. You can't go anywhere, Mike, but everybody else, you don't go anywhere either.
This is UCF head football coach Gus Malzahn, and you should listen to the Sons of UCF like your hair is on fire. Go Knights and charge on.
All right, big 3 time for us, Mike. This week's big 3 are the big 3 games that have something to do with UCF in the upcoming 2021 football season, right? So these might not be exactly games UCF's playing in, but big games that you need to think about, or we need to know about, or need to be on your calendars as it relates to UCF season. So that's the backdrop, Mike. Obviously, UCF games eligible, but it could be any game in between. So that's our big 3. We'll do it draft style again, because I cannot recall who should be going first here. Mike, I'm going to do this. This is honor system stuff right here now. I am thinking of a number between 1 and 5. If you can get close, you can have first pick. If you can't, then I will have it.
Close to 1 and 5. Every number is close between 1 and 5. Why don't we just play paper, rock, scissors over the phone here and see?
All right, here we go.
Tell me what you put up.
All right, ready? 1, 2, 3, shoot. I got scissors.
Yeah, I had scissors also.
All right, 1, 2, 3, shoot. I got scissors.
Rock.
That's you, right? All right, you get first pick.
Rock.
All right, first pick, Mike.
Right.
Mike, again, first pick on the draft here. What's your first game? Again, game that is something that is important to know in the 2021 season.
The biggest game of the college football season. The rivalry is finally back. The civil conflict, baby. November 20th, 2021, UConn. I'm just kidding. That cannot be. Oh, man. But the opener of the season, Boise State, September 2nd, 7 p.m. on ESPN, the premiere of the Gus Bus. You always remember your first. This is going to be huge. The packed Bounce House for the first time since 2019. This is the biggest home game atmosphere since probably you got to go back to that season. I guess the Stanford game, right? Ever since then, I can't think of a bigger home game. Excitement right now for the program is through the roof. It's going to be sold out. I know it's not completely sold out yet. We still got another 2 months to go. It's going to be a packed house. I expect this environment to be like the game day game against Cincinnati in 2018. I think this is the biggest home opener since we opened the stadium in 2007 against Texas. Usually we're opening the season against the Charleston Southerns and FAMU. This year we're jumping right into it. A big name program, Boise State. Probably the biggest season opening game since the Ireland game in 2014 when we played Penn State. And this game sets the tone. It sets the tone for the whole year. If we win this game, I can see us getting put into the top 25. It gives us the leg up for the New Year's Six game against the Mountain West Conference. So if we win this game, we're in the driver's seat for that. All we have to do now is win out and win our conference. And I think we're in a good spot. So to me, this is it. I cannot wait for this game. How many more days do we have left? Like 50 something, right?
Every day there's a new player on there. I swear to God, we go from number 65 to number 58 in 2 days. I guess I'm not paying attention. It was Matt Lee number of days a few days ago. So I think we might be on 54, 53, somewhere in there.
I think it might even be 51. We might get into the 40s soon. I don't know.
Jesus.
I'm not doing the math on the calendar, but we're almost to the middle of July here. Not far from now. So I'm pumped up. To me, that's my number one pick. I cannot wait for the Boise State game. Kick this thing off, Gus Bus style.
All right, that's the correct answer, by the way. That the most important game is the first one, and that's obviously the most important, at least coming up, Mike. But I have the first pick for my first game, so I'm gonna go UCF traveling to Cincinnati, October 16th. I think this is a pretty obvious choice as well. Obviously, we know Cincinnati is the reigning AAC champion. They are the group of 5 representative in the New Year's Six bowl game this past season. They appear to be the darling of many of the national media folks who think Cincinnati has a lot of staying power. Obviously, they're returning a lot of the same guys from last year, including their quarterback, Desmond Ridder, who some people foolishly think is better than Dylan Gabriel. So this is obviously going to be a classic tilt. Listen, they have the throne right now. They have the crown. And if we want the crown, we're going to have to go up there and take it from them. We've done it before. We can do it again. But obviously, this will be a game circled on the calendar that once we get past Boise, this is really the next, one of the next big tests for us to claim that group of 5 crown. Cincinnati has it now. We want it back. Last time we were up there, things did not go well for us. So it's a bit of a revenge time for us, Mike. And obviously losing 2 in a row to Cincinnati under the Heupel era or the He-Uppel era. So Cincinnati UCF, October 16th, my number one choice for big game this upcoming season.
It hasn't been announced yet, but I could very easily see this being an ABC game, a 3:30 kickoff game. If Cincinnati wins their out-of-conference games early in the year, they have Indiana on September 18th, and they have Notre Dame 2 weeks before.
Don't spoil anything. 2nd. Oh, Jesus.
They win those. They're a top 15 team. This is an early season matchup that could be a rematch in the conference championship game. We've lost a couple close ones to them before, but the winner of this game may get home field advantage in that game. I'm excited for this one too.
Well, luckily I have the next pick of the second round, Mike, and my next most important game of 2021 is October 7th, Cincinnati at Notre Dame. That is my next game, Mike, because that is essentially the week before they play us. So can you imagine a scenario where Cincinnati goes into Notre Dame, beats a Notre Dame team that a lot of people always like Notre Dame. They're typically going to be highly ranked or at least highly thought of early in the season. If Cincinnati goes in there and beats Notre Dame, and puts a W on the board, then comes home and we put a W on them on the road, essentially at their home, only helps our standing as one of the better teams in the conference. So by extension, I kind of want Cincinnati to beat Notre Dame so we get even a little bit more staying power. So the week before, maybe it's a hangover situation. How does this play into Cincinnati? Are they going to look past UCF? Probably not, but you never know how these things work out. If they win the game, are they going to have a bit of that big game hangover? Who knows? So give me the October 7th game, Cincinnati at Notre Dame, as my second big game of 2021.
Yeah, I have this game as 2 weeks before, so I'm going to check the schedule again here. I think they play October 2nd. They play Temple after them and before they come to us. I think Temple, that's a, what do you call it? Trap game.
Is that what they call it?
Yeah. But, yeah, that is a big one.
You're correct. Sorry, my fault.
It's a big one for the conference.
That is the second. That's my fault.
Right. So that's a huge game for the conference, and we got to be big Cincinnati fans for that game. We talked in 2018 when we first did this podcast. Remember, we were going through the schedule, and we really needed to have some other teams in this conference be ranked high when we play them in order to help us out. And we were talking about getting into the playoff. This would be huge if Cincinnati comes into our game undefeated, having beat Notre Dame. Like I said, that game most likely goes to ABC. It's probably a top 15 matchup. If we're taking care of business ourselves, we may both be in the top 15 at that point.
All right, so I've got two Cincinnati tilts as my first two. What's your second most important game of 2021?
All right. See, when I made my list, I just did all UCF games, and you're picking other games. Now I have 3 games here to pick from. I only got 2 spots left. I got to see where I want to go with this. But you know what? I'm just going to go the Louisville game early in the year, September 17th. Also a 7:30 kickoff, ESPN. The return to the scene of the crime from 2013, the Bortles to Godfrey game. Remember, we were down 28-7. Comes storming back, Storm Johnson. 38-35 win. I think that game is, you got to consider it for the best regular season win ever. That and the Cows Black Friday game in 2017. I think those are the 2 biggest regular season games we've ever had. Right. So we get to go back there this year. Louisville was not that great of a team last year, but they're tricky too. If you look at their schedule last year, they get blown out at Georgia Tech, a team that we beat the crap out of. They have losses to Miami and Virginia Tech at home, but then they have a close game with Notre Dame. They play them 12-7. They blew out Florida State 48-16. They blew out Syracuse 30-0. I don't know what to expect out of these guys. Maybe this could be a year for them where they start putting things together a little bit. It's always a good test to play an ACC team. It's a Friday night game. It's going to be a nice atmosphere in Louisville. If they can beat Ole Miss on Labor Day to start the year, they may be in the top 25 by the time we play them. That's another big win for us if we get that early in the year.
Yeah, that's a marquee one on the calendar. Again, obviously a non-con game. So if we can, sweep, really, I guess 2 of the first 3 and sort of big non-con opponents and Boise State and an ACC team in Louisville, that's definitely off to a good start. It would set the tone for the rest of the season. So I concur. I had that on my list as well, but you have picked it before me. So you now have UCF Boise, UCF Louisville. I have Cincinnati UCF and Cincinnati Notre Dame. Who is your third biggest game, or what is your third biggest game of the 2021 season? All
right. I have 2 here written down. I'm going to have to make a decision here. I'm going to go with, when in doubt, just go with the rivalry game. The Cow game, Black Friday. I asked Gus straight up when I talked to him, are you going to run up the score on these guys? He didn't give me an answer, but he's been made aware now of the magnitude of this game. And the series is tied at 6-6. We have a chance finally to take the lead in this series against the Cows. This may be a clinching game for us, maybe clinch a spot in the championship game. It could have huge ramifications. It's a senior night game. You got guys like Eric Gilliard, Derek Gaines, Kalia Davis, Cole Schneider, Sam Jackson, Jake Hescock. Maybe the last game for Dylan Gabriel at home. Just huge repercussions for this game. This also could be a historically bad season for the Cows. If they don't beat FAMU in week 3 this year, we may be talking about a winless season for the Cows. Their other out-of-conference games are NC State, Florida, and BYU. I don't think any of us see them winning any of those games. So this could be a huge game both ways. One, to put us in the conference championship game. Another, to give us the lead in the all-time series. And maybe to give the Cows a winless season, top it all off at the end of the year like that. Oh, man, I'm excited just thinking about it.
It's a good choice. On paper, you wouldn't think, obviously, it's a big game, right? Because wouldn't, at least in terms of competition, perhaps, but certainly all the things you laid out make it a really intriguing game, and one that certainly could hopefully have a lot of positive vibes from a UCF standpoint. So not a bad choice. When in doubt, go to the Cows. This leaves me in a tough spot, Mike, because I've got 3 options here for my final game. As I wasn't sure which way you were going with this. So here's the one I'm not going to use. Which one did you not use? What was your last one?
I didn't use the Memphis Friday night game.
Yeah, so Memphis is on my list as well. Revenge game, obviously losing to them. Here's the other 2 I wrote down. Clemson at Louisville, November 6th. If for some ungodly known reason Louisville is able to upset Clemson, and we've already taken care of business early on, that only helps our standing as well. Now, I don't know if that's even possible because to your point earlier, Louisville was not necessarily the most consistent team last year. Clemson is obviously without Trevor Lawrence and Travis Etienne, so they're breaking in some new guys, but by November, they'll probably have it figured out. So while there's a small chance anything can happen, the game is at Louisville. That would be a massive win if Louisville can pull that off, if we take care of them early on, but I don't think that's possible. Then here's the other game I looked at, Mike. You're going to scratch your head here. Coastal Carolina plays App State October 20th. Coastal Carolina and App State are the other 2 darling group of 5 teams that I think a lot of the national media will want to put into some sort of a higher ranking. Coastal obviously had a Cinderella season last year. And so I think they were the other team that essentially would have been ranked in that new playoff format, if I saw that correctly. So Coastal would have had an opportunity. If they continue to run the board, I have a feeling that the voters will continue to want to put Coastal up there. Same thing with App State. They're probably not as highly thought of as Coastal, but obviously always a good team. So one of these 2 teams beating each other in the season probably is a benefit to UCF, particularly if it comes down to sort of a close factor at the end. Now, if we take care of business and beat all the teams in front of us, we shouldn't have any problems getting in over Coastal. But if we have a slip up anywhere along the way, Coastal also going down would be a good thing for us too. So they're another choice for mine as well. But then I've got UCF Memphis, and I think I'm going to go with UCF Memphis only because it's a revenge game, Friday night game, bounce house. Under the lights. Obviously, last time we played Memphis, they flat out embarrassed us. We've had a good traditional rivalry with them the last couple of seasons, and we definitely owe them one for hanging a 50 spot on us last time. So while I think Louisville and Clemson is unlikely, I think Coastal and App State, you never know, but I'm going to go UCF Memphis as my 3rd game.
All right. We're playing Memphis that Friday night, coming off the Cincinnati game. If we're coming off a win, can you imagine how hyped up the bounce house is going to be for a Friday night game? Another great atmosphere game. Remember, we've only lost to these guys once in the last 30 years, and that was last year on that missed field goal by Obarski. It's time to start a new streak against them. I think this is going to be the space game for the year, too. If you think about it, remember we got stuck with a day game because they didn't know what time the kickoffs were going to be. This is already planned in advance that it's a Friday night game. It's a home game. I think a very good chance for a space game on this one. People love that one. And, of course, a lot of close games with Memphis. And even though we had the long streak against them, the championship games, the go-bone game, the stand-back hit game, and, of course, last year's game, it's a very good rivalry. I would have picked that one, too. The other games you mentioned, though, are very interesting. The Coastal Carolina game, if we beat Boise, you got to think we have the leg up on the Mountain West teams. But, yeah, you can't forget about these other conferences that they may be able to put them in. If they have an undefeated season and we have a one-loss season, they may give that team the nod over us.
Yeah, I don't know why I had to Google the words Coastal Carolina football schedule, but if you ever do that, they don't have a really tough schedule this year, Mike. So it's not like they're playing. They've got Kansas. They play at Buffalo, Massachusetts, Louisiana Monroe, Arkansas State, App State, Troy, Georgia Southern, Georgia State, Texas State, South Alabama. So they're not exactly playing world beaters. But if for some reason they run the table, and again, to your point, we have one loss someplace along the way, it could definitely get dicey in a hurry. So I'd like to see them at least taken out of the equation early on, because I don't think that they would deserve to be in. I could see a lot of the national media people, wanting to continue the narrative and, to look at the little guy. And, Coastal was such a great story last year, and, they quote unquote do things the right way and, all that good stuff. So them being out of the picture early on would definitely be a good thing. And if God love you, if Louisville can beat Clemson, that would just be fantastic.
Oh man, that would be something. And you never know. Sometimes Clemson does get tripped up by like a Pitt. Pitt seemed to have their number a couple of years ago. You never know. It's on the road. Maybe that's a night game. it's possible. Anything is possible in college football. We're talking about 18, 19-year-old kids. I wouldn't count on it happening, but that'd be a big boost for our schedule. So that's what we got to root for. We got to root for, and after we beat Boise State, I think we got to root for them to win their conference, right? Because if there's another team in that conference that goes undefeated, also beating Boise State, then all of a sudden they're in the mix there against us for the New Year's Six too.
All right, so Mike has Boise, Louisville, and the Cows. I have Cincinnati, Notre Dame, and then UCF and the Tigers, so the Memphis Tigers rather. So those are our big three. I will probably remember to put this on a poll later on this week, but probably not. You never really know. But let us know what games you are most looking forward to this year, what you think the big games are as you look at UCF's schedule and our hopes to get into a New Year's Six, maybe even a playoff type conversation. So let us know on social media what you think, and then let us know what you think about our interview after you hear it next, because it's Brian Waters. It's fantastic. You're going to hear a lot of stories. You're going to hear a lot of passion. Mike, at one point, I think he may be the first ever interview guest that told us he was going to cry, and that's not from the bad questions we asked. So stay tuned. Brian Waters coming up next on the Sons of UCF.
This is UCF Athletic Director Terry Mohajir, and in my spare time, when I'm not on TikTok, I'm listening to Adam and Mike on the Sons of UCF. Go Knights and charge on!
All right, 2006 to 2010, you saw our guest tonight donning the black and gold. We're number 6. He was a wide receiver. He was a part of two really special teams and a couple special moments in his UCF career. He's now into coaching, and we'll get into that later on as well. But happy to have Brian Waters on the show with us this week. First off, Brian, thanks so much for taking the time to join us.
No problem, man. Thank you for having me. I think that what you guys are doing is awesome. I tune in a lot, and I like listening to what you guys have going on, and I appreciate it.
All right, well, we like you already, so we're off on a good foot. But let's start here. How did you become aware of UCF? You're a kid out of Georgia, obviously, in being recruited in 04, 05. We had some lean years at UCF. How did you become aware of UCF? How did UCF first start recruiting you?
Well, the story would be there was a coach of mine. I wasn't really highly recruited in high school. A guy named Coach Johnson. He told me about a school named UCF down in Orlando that he believed that was on the up and come up, and thought it would be a good fit for me, being that it was a mid-major at the time. And he put together a highlight tape for me, and back then, we had to put it in the bubble wrap in the manila folders and ship them off, and just pray that the tape didn't get tossed in a pile of a million others. And it was an exciting time, and George O'Leary and Coach Dave Huxtable, they came up to visit me, man, and the rest was kind of history from there.
What was that first meeting like with Coach O'Leary? He's obviously known as a pretty intimidating guy and a pretty strict guy. What was your first impression, first meeting with Coach O'Leary?
Well, I'll tell you what, the first meeting was a lot better than the second one. But no, man, Coach O'Leary is a great guy. He and Coach Huxtable, they came to my parents' crib, and they sat down. We ate some wings and watched some TV, talked it up, and they ended up inviting me down on an official visit and all of that good stuff. He was a really nice guy.
Well, hold on, I got to know, what was that second meeting like?
Well, I would say probably the third meeting then. The second one would be on my official visit when I came down in January of 2006, and everything was, of course, still pretty much how it was when we met in Rome, Georgia. And, of course, I ended up committing there just pretty much based off of how beautiful the campus was. And but that third meeting was a little different. It was around, like the first special teams meeting. And, that's when I understood that things were, a little more serious than it was when I was getting recruited.
I got one more follow-up for you. What kind of wings? Is GOL like a hot sauce guy? Lemon pepper? What kind of wings was he having?
Well, at the time, we just had some hot wings, and we just ate and had a great time. Laughed it up. I think we watched some kind of game as well, but I can't remember that far back. I mean, it's blowing my mind that was 15 years ago by now. But I do know that him and Coach Hucks came in. They had some good food. And we showed him some Southern hospitality from the state of Georgia.
Could he handle the hot wings? Were the hot wings good for him?
From what I can recall, he didn't have any problem eating them.
Okay.
And, so I think that he enjoyed them.
Right,
or at least he acted like he did.
It's a smart thing to do.
How familiar were you with his style of play? I mean, you're a wide receiver coming to play for this guy who is a defensive-minded guy, likes to run the ball. Did that have any effect on your decision to come to UCF?
Well, actually, it didn't. See, a lot of people don't know or can remember, but I was actually offered to come and play as a defensive back at UCF. They offered me to come play safety. And, when I got down there, I had a defensive mindset because I was an all-state safety in Georgia. So I really didn't pay too much attention to the offense. I knew there was a chance, and I knew that I had liked playing offense, but I was a quarterback in high school. Got down to, my first week there at UCF, and I ended up getting switched over to wide receiver. So I kind of had to learn on the fly of kind of how, what his philosophies were offensively, and, kind of how things worked in that nature.
That's got to be a big reason why they decided to redshirt you that first year. I guess learning a new position is going to take a little while, right?
Exactly. I had no idea how to play wide receiver. I didn't know hardly of the plays. The only thing that I could really do to benefit the team at the time was read the plays off. Well, watch the arrow that I was supposed to run on the scout team card.
Well, but somehow you worked your way onto the field in 2007. You played a handful. You played a bunch on special teams. You played some on offense. What do you think you did in between 2006 and 2007 to earn the right to get on the field in the coach's eyes?
Well, I like to, describe the time that I was at UCF as the UCF roller coaster, because we had a bunch of ups and we had a bunch of downs as well. But for me, as far as getting on the field, just understanding that I really loved the game of football, and I started, understanding that there was a certain way of putting in work, because some people think that you just have to work extremely hard and things are going to fall your way. That's not necessarily true in a Division I program or any other program in the entire country. You have to really work hard physically, but you have to get your mental together. Because if you don't have that mental, then there's no way that you're beat before the play even starts. So, I had a bunch of mentors, or big brothers, what I call them. I was up under the wings of Rocky Ross, Mike Walker, and some other guys who were there who were big names. And I kind of followed in their footsteps and saw how they carried themselves in the meeting rooms, around campus, and how much time they dedicated to watching film and actually learning the game as a student. And, just keeping that with me the entire time that I was at UCF was pretty much what helped me kind of catapult into some of those starting roles.
Well, let me take it back to October 28th, 2007. You guys are playing Southern Miss. And you caught your first TD pass. What do you remember from that play? What do you remember from, do you remember what was called in the huddle? Do you remember knowing you were open when you ran the route? What do you remember about that play?
Okay. So let me rewind really quick to 2 games before that. We played against South Florida and we got killed.
We remember, yes.
I'll never forget it. 64-12, man. I will never forget it. But I had been a special teams player that entire season. We were maybe like 4 or 5 games in at that point. And, the coach really saw how much effort I was putting in as a special teamer and decided to give me a shot at, playing a couple of snaps against South Florida. Granted, it was in the 4th quarter. We were down by 50 points, but I got in, and I want to say it was Mike Greco at the time. He threw me my first completion as a collegiate athlete. It was a slant across the middle, and then I caught another one right after it, shortly after. So even though we were being blowed out, I still got in and gave it my all. And the coaches took notice to that, and they let me play a little bit the next game. I think it was Tulsa we played next, and then Southern Miss came. So I do remember that there was a dig route in the back of the end zone, and ended up catching the ball. Wasn't expecting it to come, but Kyle Israel, he threw a great ball. Exhilarated, man. It was an unbelievable feeling. And one thing that I do remember mostly is that one of the, pretty much in my opinion, one of the greatest blocking tight ends in UCF history, his name was Mike Merritt. And Mike Merritt came up and he squeezed all of the air out of me, and I couldn't breathe for like a minute and a half. Yeah.
Well, luckily you figured it out quickly, and Mike got off you, because then the next week you go to Marshall. You lead UCF with 6 receptions, 88 yards, and you took 2 to the house. You had an early reception, 23 yards in the second quarter, and then another 30-yarder late in the fourth quarter. Were you just in a groove at that point? Were you just kind of feeling your rhythm? Take us to the Marshall game. Obviously, a big game for UCF back in 2007. People forget Marshall was a pretty big rival for us back in those days. How important were those two for you, and kind of your second coming out party, if you will?
Well, up until that point, I kind of was still questioning if I was, really able to perform at a collegiate level and be effective and help the team at the position that I was at. The Marshall game pretty much solidified that confidence in me. Coach gave me a little more responsibility at the time. I was strictly playing slot receiver. We had Kamar Aiken on the outskirts and Rocky Ross as well. And like I said, Kyle Israel, man, he's a great quarterback who really I don't believe gets enough credit like he should. But, he told me earlier in that week that, he felt that some of the outside linebackers didn't match up well with me and that I would probably get more targets than I ever had. And he threw me the ball 6 times and was fortunate enough to make some good plays out there and get in that end zone 2 more times. It was great.
Yeah, that season is one of the best we've ever had up to that point. And you think things are lining up now for UCF, but Kevin Smith decides to leave to go to the NFL. Kyle, you just mentioned, he graduates. So now the offense has to change over completely in 2008. How did that affect you on the field?
Well, 2008, even though it was a down season team-wise, it was kind of a coming out party for me. Rob Calabrese, I always call him my quarterback because he was only 18 at the time, coming in as a true freshman. And, me and him kind of leaned on each other. We had some injuries at receiver that year. And, me and him kind of stuck together, and I was his go-to guy. We both, we didn't have the season that we wanted, like I said, as a team. But in 2008 is one of the more memorable ones for me because it was the first one that I led UCF in all receiving categories.
Yeah, what's that like to have a season where individually you're having a really good year, but the team itself is not having success? I mean, it's got to be mixed feelings showing up to practice every day, right?
Well, I can recall going on a losing streak during that season. I think we lost maybe 4 in a row. And, at that point in time, nothing on the team is really, really good. Especially when you're a collegiate program who just come off of their first Conference USA championship in school history, to fall off the map that quick, it was very disappointing. And when you're a team player and winning is your ultimate goal, you don't really look at your personal accolades. You don't look at your statistics and things of that nature, because guess what? Ultimately, you're not good, because the team that you're on is not good. So I really didn't pay any attention to that type of stuff, until, the end of the year deal when they gave out the rewards and I got the receiver of the year deal, which it felt good because I was, I worked really hard for it. But at the same time, you're coming off a taste of a championship, and then, you go 4-8, and it's just, it wasn't that great for me.
Well, let's turn the page to 2009. Obviously,
there we go.
New optimism potentially, right? A new offensive coordinator comes in. Charlie Taft comes in. How does that change what you do as a receiver? I mean, we, in the media, fans all the time, we're like, get rid of this guy, he's terrible. Get this new coach in. And I don't think people realize the amount of change that requires for you as a player. Take us behind the scenes. What's that change like between 2008 and 2009? Learning a whole new system, new terminology, all the new things that come with having a new OC.
Well, it's definitely a change. Good thing was Coach Taft, rest in heaven, he had brought in a similar style offense that we were used to. During the time that I was there, UCF was pretty much run heavy. We relied on our running backs a lot, and then when the receivers' names were called, you were expected to produce. So you always had to stay on ready as a receiver when when I was there. So I mean, the different terminology that just comes from being you get better at that just studying the playbook day in and day out. But like I said, the philosophy was pretty much still the same. We were going to run the ball first, and then we were going to air the ball out when necessary. We wanted to make sure that we protected the ball, and we weren't beating ourselves type deal. We weren't going to be that flashy, high-powered offense that was going to put up 70 points a game. None of that stuff. We were going to do what we needed to do and just make sure that we didn't lose it for sure. So it wasn't that different of an adjustment. For me, that season was definitely different than the one before because I came in 2009 with high hopes and, working hard once again, to continue producing well at receiver. But I ended up getting hurt that year. We were playing against Southern Miss, and I can't remember what game of the season it was, but we were there.
The second game.
It was second game. It was a 3rd and long, and Brett Hodges at the time, he threw me a corner route or flag route, and it was a perfect strike. And I jumped up on 2 guys and made a great catch and came down and slammed my foot into the ground and ended up breaking my toe, my big toe. This was insane. So I made a great catch, and Rocky Ross comes over and he's celebrating with me, and good job, great job, and all of that, pat me on the butt and helped me up. And when I got up, man, it felt like a rock was in my foot, and I was like, I know it's turf out here, but there's no way in the world a rock is in my cleat. Ended up hobbling off to the sideline. I was like, man, I think something's wrong with my foot here. And they pulled my cleat off, and my great toe, for the medical terminology, was laying over all of my other 4 ones. It was crazy. And Judd at the time was one of our athletic trainers, was like, man, go ahead and take a deep breath. And he stuck his hand in between and popped it right back in place. Tried to get back out and play, man, but I just couldn't put any pressure on it. And honestly, that right there was, even though I did have, I don't know, maybe around 100 and something yards that year, but that was pretty much the end of my season, in my opinion, because I was never the same.
Yeah, we just became best friends, Brian. So, like 10 weeks ago, I fractured my big toe in 5 spots. I dropped a weight on it. And, man, people laugh at me, man. You don't know how much that hurt and, like, how much you rely on your big toe to do anything, man. I'm still, like, trying to figure out a way to go run and jump without having any sort of pain or discomfort. So I definitely feel your pain on that one.
Let me tell you something. If you ever need anybody to vouch for you, you got my number. Tell them to call, and I'll let them know how serious a big toe is.
I hear you. Well, you mentioned Brett Hodges, and that's an interesting name. So he transfers in 2009, obviously a veteran quarterback. And look, you had been through a bunch of quarterbacks at that point already. You talked about Kyle, you talked about Greco, Calabrese. Yep. What did Brett bring to the team? Obviously, he was a transfer from Wake. He had a little bit more experience. Mm-hmm. Do you think he helped solidify kind of that new offense and maybe give you guys a bit of a veteran presence in that 2009 season?
Well, he definitely came in with a plethora of confidence. His leadership skills were through the roof. He was a vocal guy on the field. He never said anything off the field that I can recall. But when he got on the field, he was going to tell you what to do, when to do it, and how to do it in a split second. And if you didn't do it, he was going to let you know that you didn't do it. So I just remember Brett Hodges, which I didn't really get to have too much, time or success and play with him because I was hurt that year. But I can just recall his leadership and, the confidence that he brought. He rarely made, bad decisions out on the field. He was a pretty good quarterback in my opinion. And, he led us to some good wins that we had in 2009 and, took us to a bowl game.
Yeah, I think the biggest win that season was against Houston. We had never beat a ranked team before.
Nope.
Did you guys know that going into the game? Was that a big deal in the locker room?
Oh yeah, every time we played someone who was ranked, we always knew because we were collegiate athletes. We watched ESPN, we watched the top 25. We did all of that stuff. So we knew. I think that Houston might have been number 13 or number 15 at the time, and we knew exactly who was coming into town, who was coming into the bounce house, and we did everything that we could to ensure that victory.
Right. What was the celebration like after that game? Would you guys, did O'Leary let you get a little loose for a little bit? That was a pretty big win in school history.
Oh yeah, it was definitely a really big one. I wouldn't say that it was as big as the conference championship or anything of that nature, but it was definitely another milestone that we had finally gotten past in school history. And O'Leary, he was happy. We wore some black jerseys that day. I'll never forget. And he would always tell us, that the training was in effect, but he would also say, get out and enjoy tonight and be responsible. We'll look at the tape tomorrow. We'll lift the weights and we'll get back to going to play Tulane next week.
All right. So that was one of the bigger wins that kind of springboarded the team into the next year, the 2010, the championship season. So that one, and I think the Marshall comeback win were the two biggest from 2009, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah. So 2009 Marshall game was absurd. That was a crazy game, and I can remember Rocky catching the the blown coverage pass in the end zone. It was insane, man. He was just out there slinging his hand up like nobody's on me, and Brett lofted it right out there to him, man. And I just remember him running back to the sideline, hands up. I also remember Bruce Miller, which is one of my best friends still to this day, made a great play on defense, recovering a fumble to help us get the ball back for that drive that we actually won the game on.
Yeah, that game was over. They had a first down, and there was no way we could have stopped the clock or anything.
It was done.
Bruce made that play. Yeah.
Yep. Yep, it was done. Mm-hmm.
Brian, one of the most interesting things about college sports, in my opinion, is when your time is up, right? So going into 2010, it's your senior year, it's your last season. Obviously, you're coming off an injury in 2009. Obviously, you saw a great year in 07, and you saw a down year in 08. So coming into your last year, what kind of goals did you set for yourself, and what did you want to accomplish, knowing that this was going to be the last time you were wearing the black and gold?
The number one thing that I had in my mind every single season was to win a championship. I didn't care if I was going to be the one that was going to be leading the team in all receiving categories. I wanted to, once I got that taste of that first championship, I wanted to win a championship every year after that. So, being a senior that year, coming off of an injury, I had to have a hellacious, productive offseason in order to prove myself again, because a lot of people don't know this, but in 2007, I was a redshirt freshman. We had three great freshmen come in that, took the spot that I thought that I was going to have. Kamar Aiken, he is one of the UCF greatest receivers of all time, in my opinion. We had A.J. Guyton and Kemmis Williams. They came in as freshmen and they were ready to play, and they beat me out of a spot. Hence is why I didn't come onto the scene later in that 2007 season. All of those guys were playing before me. But here I am in 2009, 2010, again, put in a lot of hard work. And here I am. I'm not starting. I'm going to have to prove myself once again. So everything that I had to do in the beginning of my career, I had to do in the end of my career. But I wanted to win a championship, and that was by any means. I wanted to make sure that, my time didn't go in vain, and that we left a lasting impression on the school. And, that's kind of how I went into it. Now, fortunately, I was, I had my mind together and was able to work extremely hard and earn that starting spot back again by the time the season started. But, even if I didn't do it, I was still going to bust my butt and do whatever the team needed me to do, being in a leadership role to ensure that, we got to where we needed to go.
Well, to get there, we were going to be led by one of the most unique quarterbacks we had seen at that point in time. Jeff Godfrey comes in 2010 and takes over. And Brian, he was unlike anything we had seen before. We had seen Dante back in the day, but Dante was a 6'6", 6'5", 250-pound guy. And obviously UCF had been more of a running team, a more traditional pass team. And Godfrey comes in with just an unreal athleticism, the ability to kid had a rocket for an arm. He could run anywhere. What kind of challenges did that bring to you as a receiver, dealing with kind of a whole new style of quarterback? No disrespect to Rob and Greco and Brett and Kyle, but Godfrey brought a whole different skill set. How did that change what you had to do as a receiver?
Well, first of all, hats off to Jeff Godfrey. I actually just he reached out to me a few weeks ago, and we chopped it up a little bit. But hats off to that cat right there, because he had a big name in Miami, set records in the state of Florida and all kinds of stuff. And he came in. It didn't take him long to get acclimated. He was a smart guy. He was very witty. He was super athletic, but he was very, very raw. And to put into terms of, how that affected me, it made me look better than what I was. He was a hell of a player. And, I give a lot of credit to that kid, because he came in, he was a baby. And he was able to hop in. I remember we played against NC State when he really got to make his little debut. And we were down, and he almost brought us all the way back. We didn't have, if it weren't for a fumble late in the game, we probably would have beat NC State that game. And a lot of people forget that Russell Wilson was the opposing quarterback. And, so it was pretty much Jeff Godfrey versus Russell Wilson at the time. And Jeff, he was only 18. He showed his tail, and he really showed that he was going to be something special and a force to be reckoned with in the future.
Well, how did all that, just looking back in your career, how did all that quarterback turnover impact you? Right, we talked about Kyle, then there was Greco, then there was Rob, then there was Brett, then there was Godfrey.
Yeah.
Obviously, Blake didn't play a ton in 2010, but obviously Blake was laying around in 2010 as well. As a receiver, how did you adjust every year, especially with Greco being left-handed, the ball spins differently? How did you adjust to having a different quarterback throwing the ball every year?
I mean, it was difficult at times. Just trying to, get the camaraderie down and, the relationship and, being on the same page with guys. But, UCF at that time, we were still in the trial and error stage. We weren't an established program yet that was, pretty much solidified in every spot. Every day that we came to practice, it was prove yourself or get replaced. Because there weren't any athletes who were just a side of one, and his name is Kevin Smith. And maybe Joe Burnett. But, during that time, we weren't getting 3- and 4-star recruits. We were getting guys who were slept on or didn't know, or nobody really knew about like that. So everybody was pretty much on the same level talent-wise. So it was a war every day that we went to practice. And I'm talking about the entire time that I was there. If you got injured, there was a guy who was exactly the same, as good as you, going to come in and going to do what you've done or better. So, having those quarterbacks there, they had different receivers too. They had different running backs that they were handing the ball off to. They had different O-linemen blocking for them. There was nothing set in stone, and there was nothing guaranteed. No spots guaranteed. So, I appreciate that now. At the time, it was always a tough grind, but it made me mentally stronger for the future. And, just like I was having different quarterbacks, man, the quarterbacks were throwing to different receivers. I can't really, say that it was tough on me and not defend them and say that it had to be tough on them as well. So, I mean, you just kind of got used to that mix around and the rotations, and that's who we were as a team and as players.
You guys really started clicking there in 2010. The offense started rolling, putting up some pretty big numbers. Was there a point in that season where you knew something special was going on and that we had a championship team on our hands?
Oh, without a doubt. For one, and nothing towards Rob Calabrese. You know, he ended up going out in the Marshall game after a touchdown. He ended up tearing an ACL, which was insane. But, you know, Jeff, you know, after that happened, there was no questions asked at the quarterback position. It was going to be Jeff Godfrey. And, you know, we ended up getting beat by Kansas State, which still bothers me. Yeah, still bothers me today. But we went on a streak of wins. I think we won maybe 5 games in a row. And, you know, we beat East Carolina, who we hadn't beat in, I think, maybe 5 games. They won like 5 straight against us. We ended up beating them. And I recall in an interview at the end of the game that I said that I feel like we have a special team in the making, because when we beat East Carolina, we were clicking on all cylinders. We were clicking offensively, special teams, and defensively. And, you know, all of the guys, we were really close on the team. You know, the guys that were freshmen and freshmen and, you know, redshirt freshmen when I was early in my career. We were grown-ups now just about. You know, we were 20, 21, 22 years old, and we had a bunch of leadership and a bunch of guys who really took a lot of pride in the program. And, you know, we beat Houston the next game. I knew for a fact then that we were going to go to the conference championship. But then there was Southern Miss. Yeah. And then there was Southern Miss, man. That was my senior day game, and we just couldn't do anything with them, man. I thought we were going to come back in the end. My roommate Jamar Newsom, he started showing up at the end of the season. It was magical, but you know, Southern Miss game was the one that kind of humbled me a little bit, because I remember saying that, shoot, anybody can get beat on any given day in the NCAA, and you know, but we ended up picking it back up, and I think we won 2 more after that, and there was the conference championship for the second time.
Yeah, the Southern Miss game is a head scratcher. We had just gotten ranked in the top 25 for the first time in school history,
first
right?
Time.
And we lose the very next game. And that game, we were up 14-0 early in that game, right? Where you jumped on them, and then they just pushed us around the rest of the day.
Man, I remember we ran an option play. I had went on a Z motion and wrapped around Latavius Murray, I believe it was. It was either him or Ronnie Weaver. And Jeff Godfrey pulled that thing. We ran a beautiful option play. He pitched me the ball. I scored a touchdown. Ja Reed, he pretty much picked me up and threw me out of the stadium with his strength. And you know, we were up 14-0, and we were pumped. And I knew that it was really, really on, because at that point we had won 5 in a row. And then, man, we just fell apart. I can't really recall what it was. I think we may have ended up turning the ball over a couple of times, or had too many 3 and outs. And, you know, we got sat down that game. I can recall Coach O'Leary being, you know, at the end of that game, well, the next day in the team meeting, you know, telling us that our goals were still in front of us. Now, that was a different O'Leary that I had heard in previous times after a loss. But even he knew that, you know, we had been building, and this was part of his vision that he had for us, that, you know, we still had a chance at, you know, making this one of the most special seasons that UCF has ever had. And, you know, we really took that, you know, and tossed that loss out of there. We went and played against, I think, Tulane in Memphis. I think we blew out Tulane in the Kohl Superdome, and, you know, ended up playing Memphis, and it ended up beating them. And, you know, here we are at the Conference USA Championship, like I said, for the second time in a row, man. In my opinion, there's no doubt in my mind we lose to SMU. There's no doubt in my mind. It just can't happen.
Yep. The 3 losses that year, they were all tough ones and games we could have won. The NC State game we mentioned, if he brings Godfrey in a quarter earlier, I think we end up passing them and beating them.
Mm-hmm.
The Kansas State game, which that one still gives me nightmares, like you said.
Yeah.
We got on A.J. Guyton for that one when he trips going into the end zone. That would have been a touchdown. And then the Southern Miss one. Those 3 games, which one hurts the most for you?
let's see. I would probably say the Southern Miss game probably hurts the most. I've already beaten South Carolina State before. We beat them in 2007 at their place. Kansas State, that game was just a strange game. We had that tornado delay for like an hour and a half. When we were up, I don't really know how you're supposed to come out after that, and have the same type of enthusiasm and same type of mentality and focus as you had when you had the momentum, when you've been sitting around eating sunflower seeds for an hour and a half. So, I mean, that one did bother me, because the games that we did lose in 2010 were close. So I would say they all bother me. But, when we had worked so hard and finally cracked that top 25, to only have that for a few days, and to have it, taken away at an instance, that one kind of hurt me. And, a lot of people don't really think of it like this, but I mean, I never beat Southern Miss the entire time that I was at UCF, I don't think.
Yeah, and thinking about it this way, too, if we win that game, I mean, we don't lose again the rest of the year, who knows how high we get ranked? Because we didn't get back into the rankings until after the Liberty Bowl that year.
Yep, exactly. And I take that back. We did beat them in 2007, so I take that one back. But, yeah, we would have really had cracked the scene then, at that, if we didn't lose that one. We may have ended up finishing, top 17, 18, maybe 15 even. Especially with the way this story ends at the end of the season.
Well, yeah, let's get to that. So Liberty Bowl comes up. You are a Georgia kid, and you draw the team from your home state, the Georgia Bulldogs. How excited were you for that matchup? How pumped were you to get a chance to lace up against the team in the state that you grew up in? Okay,
perfect. So we beat SMU in the championship, and then we accept the Liberty Bowl invite. Because at the time, that was the highest bowl game that we could go to. And, found out that we were playing against Georgia. It was surreal. It was legit surreal. I grew up a Georgia fan my entire life, loved the Bulldogs, was recruited by the Bulldogs, never got an offer from the Bulldogs. So this one was personal. And when I found out about it, it brought a sensation over me that was almost like, it's no way I can lose this one, because I've got to show everybody that knows me and has been supporting me that where I am is here now. And if you don't know who UCF is, then you're gonna learn. You're gonna learn this time.
Well, take us on the field afterwards. So the clock strikes 000 as you look up. UCF with a 10-6 victory. Obviously, your last game at UCF, you go out as a conference championship 2 times. You go out now as the Liberty Bowl champion against your hometown team. Take us on the field when it hits 000. What emotions were you going through at that time?
Oh, man. Jumping around, going crazy, just hugging my teammates. Might have shed a few tears because, of course, that was the last game that I was going to play. And honestly, I got down on my knees and just looked. I can remember looking around, and everything was, I couldn't really hear anything, and everything was kind of in slow motion for me. But really just embracing my brothers, because, we went through so much, man, when we were at UCF. And I always say this: anybody who went through to UCF during that George O'Leary era, from I'd say 2004 to 2000, maybe 12, during that era when O'Leary was, still had a lot of fierceness in him. Everybody who was on those teams, man, has my utmost respect for the rest of my life, because I know how hard it was. And when that clock struck 00, it kind of all just settled in, thinking about all of the hard workouts, all of those 1,000-degree practices out there in that heat, balancing schoolwork, all of those hours in those meeting rooms, and, sometimes good, a lot of times bad in those meeting rooms. But you know, it was all worth it at that point. At that point, it was all worth it. We had during that game, we had a drive. There was a drive, a game-winning drive that we had that Latavius Murray ended up capping off for the touchdown that took us up 10-6. I had four catches in that drive, and God dang, I always it's weird because I get emotional when I think about this stuff. But Jeff Godfrey, he played that game hurt. I don't know if a lot of people know that, but he played that game hurt. In the first quarter, he got popped throwing me a pass, and messed his ankle up in that game. And that kid didn't leave the game the entire game, and he was limping around the whole time. But on that last drive that we had, that we scored on, I remember Jeff Godfrey. I don't know if he remembers this, man, but I remember I looked at him and I was like, "It's go time. It's time to go." And he was like, "Don't worry, I got you." And you know, we put that drive together. I can't remember how long it was in the fourth quarter, but you know, me and him connected on two crucial first downs and a couple of other good plays that I'll never forget. You know, the play before Latavius Murray took it in, it was 3rd and 4. And I remember we had a play designed where I was going to run. I was the third option, and I was no way I was going to get this ball. But during that week of preparation, Coach Kelly, who is you know, one of the greatest wide receiver coaches in my opinion, to do it, he told me during that week, he called me Watt. He said, "B. Watt, don't go to sleep on this route. I know we ain't threw it to you in 2 weeks. Don't go to sleep on this route, because it's going to be that time that you go to sleep when that ball come and hit you in the face, and then you're embarrassed." and you know, I was like, "All right, coach, all right, whatever." I wasn't worried. I was just ready to get out of that cold of Memphis. And you know, it came down to 3rd and 4 in the fourth quarter against Georgia on national TV in the Liberty Bowl. And Jeff Godfrey sends me in freaking motion like he's been doing for the past 2 weeks, and sends me across the middle, and they send a blitz. They send everybody. And Jeff Godfrey, sure enough, throws that thing right over the middle, and here the ball comes to me. He hadn't threw it to me in 2 weeks. Just been throwing the other two little routes that were part of the combination. He ends up throwing me the ball in the middle of freaking Georgia, staring down the barrel of some pressure, and we complete the pass. You know, that just goes to say, man, that season was super, super special. You know, Latavius, being the great player that he is, runs it in for the game-winning touchdown on the next play. The best moment of my life thus far, aside of my 2 children.
Yeah, that was a 11-play, 65-yard drive, 5 minutes, 39 seconds.
Yes, sir. Yep. We had struggled all game. You know, that was a big-time defensive battle game. And, you know, we ended up getting that one drive that we needed, and it took all game to do it. And we still were able, through everything that we had gone through that season, we're able to still pull out one drive that would lead UCF to winning its first bowl victory in school history.
Godfrey hung in there too and took a shot on that play. I remember. And
Listen,
if you guys don't convert that, you know, we're kicking a field goal and we're at 6-6, and who knows what happens.
Man, I'm telling you, if anybody says anything wrong about Jeff Godfrey, I'm coming hard. I'm telling you, because that is my boy, and he showed me more heart from any 18-year-old that I have ever seen in my life. I'm telling you, he had a lot of weight on his back. He had a lot of seniors who was leading his team who, you know, in my opinion, coming in as a freshman, that's intimidating. You know, you got me, you got Kamar Aiken, Derek Hallman, Bruce Miller, you know, Ja Reed, guys like that who are leading the football team, Jamar Newsom, I can keep going on and on and on. And, you know, he hung right in there with the big dogs, and he accepted a leadership responsibility, and he followed through with it. And he was just a baby. And it goes down to that play. Like I said, he took a shot in the mouth on that play, but he was already hurt before that play for 3 quarters. Yeah.
You guys went out as champs, man. That's the way to do it.
I'm
Hell of a
telling you.
career on the field.
Oh, yeah.
But off the field, I hear you had some other hobbies too. So I'm hearing you were the best barber on the team. Is that true?
Oh, yeah, without a doubt. I mean, at the time, of course, man, we were all broke college students, and I had a pair of clippers, and I was the team barber at the time. Back then, we were rocking mohawks and low cut Caesars and all kinds of stuff, man. We had a good time, and I had a good time cutting everybody's hair. I mean, I cut everybody's hair who wanted a haircut.
That's a lot of guys on the roster, man. After a while, you gotta be like, I need a break, or the guys give you a tip, they buy you lunch at least. Something.
Man, listen, I used to ignore people phone calls and all kinds of stuff. Everybody always wanted haircuts and stuff like that, before games or before we would go out and have some fun, on the casual. And, man, I was ignoring phone calls left and right. Guys coming knocking at Darren Ball when he was the main one. He would come to my door and pretty much kick it down and be like, I know you in there, man. Come give me a cut. Give me all of this. And I just stay in there quiet under my blanket. Yeah. But, yeah, man, I used to cut hair, man, and that was like, back then I wasn't getting paid for it really. Maybe $5 here and there, whoever had $5. But they were my brothers, man. We took care of each other.
I see you maybe did some painting too, and you maybe some rapping, some other hobbies you had.
Oh yeah, man. I used to make beats. I could draw really well, and yeah, me and a couple of guys on the team, we used to rap in our free time and stuff like that. Chemist Williams, he was one of our producers. He had all of the studio equipment, and when we have a little free time, we go in there and rap and stuff. And it was just all part of just being young and having some innocent fun.
And too bad that NIL stuff wasn't around back then. Maybe you guys could have made some money on some of that stuff. Huh?
Oh, without a doubt, man. I'm so happy that they did, go ahead and pass that, because a lot of the guys, man, if you think about it, the amount of strain and stress that a collegiate student is under to produce on the field, as well as, in the classroom, and the amount of money winning brings to these institutions, I think that it's okay to, help these guys out, because I know a lot of guys who, were on my team who never had a dime to go to McDonald's with, so I think that it's safe to support, some of these kids who are, outstanding athletes that, have built a name for themselves and are helping the institutions out. I don't see anything wrong with it.
Yep. And now you're into coaching.
Yeah.
It seems like you're pretty passionate about it. How's your coaching style? Who are you taking after? Which one of your coaches do you model yourself after?
It's really hard to say, because I always say this when people ask me about what type of coach I am. I take everything that I felt was valuable and I appreciated and loved about my coaches, and I kept that. But then there were some things that, of course, you don't like from your coaches and that you didn't see value in, that you didn't really benefit from, that you don't like. I threw that away. So I'm super energetic as a coach. I'm a crazy guy. I'm high energy, because I'm 33 now, so I'm still jumping around and hooping and hollering. But I will say that a lot of the skill sets and a lot of the techniques that I learned from my coach, David Kelly, I wear sweatsuits in the summer like he did. I still use a lot of the values, off the field that he used to teach us. And, I show my players love like he would as well. He was hard on us, but he loved us. And, everything that he had in him that he could give to us to make us successful on the field, he gave to us. And that's exactly what I do to my guys up at Franklin Pierce University.
Obviously, you're still following UCF pretty closely now. Hard to believe it's been over 10 years since you were playing. What do you think about UCF now in the last few years and the things we've done on the field?
It makes you really, really proud to be an alumni. You see where UCF is now. I was actually there, I want to say maybe 2.5, maybe 3 weeks ago. I went down to Orlando on vacation and met up with ex-teammate of mine, Kareem Reed, who is actually on the staff now as a assistant director of recruiting. And he showed me around, the Wayne Dench area and, the new buildings, and have to go in the stadium and the locker room and all of that stuff again, man. They showed me a lot of love, and just to see how it looks now as compared to what it looked like when I was there is a night and day difference. And when I was there, it was very nice. But now, man, it's unbelievable. The program that they have, man, the success that they've been having, being in the national spotlight and having these players who are, on Heisman watch lists and all kinds of stuff like that is just, you go back and remember, and it makes you proud to be, the strong foundation of all of the success that you see now. Because we started it way back in the day, and now you can sit back and watch these guys go out and make a name for themselves and continue pushing that program in the right direction.
All right, Brian, you've been more than generous with your time, but before we let you go, we have to ask you some of our rapid-fire questions. So we end every interview, we ask some random questions. Could be music, movies, sports. You never know what you're going to get. So are you ready for some rapid, random questions?
Man, bring it on.
All right, what's one place that you have not visited yet that you want to go before you die?
Africa.
Anywhere specific?
Kenya.
Okay.
You said you listened to our show before, which thank you for that.
Yeah.
So you kind of have an idea of the different personalities me and Adam have. Some of the debates we've had on the show before. One of the big ones is I like to mix up all my food. Thanksgiving comes, I put all the food on one plate, mix it all up, get all the flavors. Adam doesn't let his food touch each other. How do you eat?
I don't care, man. It's all going to the same spot, man. Hey, I don't care. I'm gonna mix my sweet potatoes with my macaroni and cheese. I'm gonna have turkey on top of my green beans. I don't care. Put it all in a bowl.
That's the correct answer.
It is. That's what I hear. We talked to Josh Reese almost 2 years ago now. He told us at one time Justin Holman threw a ball so hard it split his glove in half. Has a quarterback ever thrown a ball so hard that they've either split your glove or hurt your finger, or you went back to the huddle man, take something off that next one?
So, no, not hurt my hand or anything, but when we were playing against NC State, I ran a slant route, and Jeff Godfrey threw a bullet, and it went through my hands and hit me in my stomach so hard that I had to lead a game for three plays. Couldn't even breathe.
I mean, do your teammates give you a little, talking to afterwards? What's it like when you're back on the bench?
Listen, no, they didn't know it. I mean, I if you go back and look at the game or any other highlights from that game, man, he threw a bullet and hit me right in the stomach. We got about 14 yards on it, but when I got up from being tackled, I just threw a finger up and was like, man, I need a break because I can't breathe. I don't think I ever told Jeff Godfrey that, man. But I was hurt after that one, man. It was like getting hit with a gun.
Well, we found out that Coach O'Leary was called the White Horse while you guys were there, right? But what's the best nickname for the players you guys had? Or did you have any nicknames?
Are you talking about nicknames that players gave me, or I gave players? Or
yeah. Anybody on the team. What's the coolest nickname you guys had?
I don't know, man. Everybody used to call me B-Dub, but it was a lot of them, man. I mean, Calibre.
I got a couple for you.
Go ahead.
Tell me what you think. Brian H2O. What do you think about that one?
Oh boy.
I don't think anybody had the time to say Brian H2O, but I'm not opposed to it. It's all good. Yeah, it's all good. But yeah, I mean, just different nicknames. I mean, we call Kamar Coupe, like a two-door coupe. AJ Guyton, his name was Juice. Yep, we had a bunch of them, man. That swung around. Jamar Newsom, Jay New. So a lot of the nicknames that we gave back then were pretty much the first letter of your first name or whatever name we called you, and just a little portion of your last name, like Derek Hallman, D Hall.
So obviously the White Horse, not a name. We actually told Coach O'Leary, we had him on the show, and told him you guys called him that. He actually thought it was funny, which is probably which is great that we got to wait like 10 years so he didn't get mad at us. But would you be mad if you found out your players now had a nickname for you that maybe wasn't a name you would want?
Oh no, man. I mean, because I know what it's like being a player. I'm not too far removed to where of course players are gonna talk some noise about their coaches that the coaches don't know. So I mean, I wouldn't be upset with it. A lot of the times, I think, the players is funny to me now because I still try and, remain cool, but I'm so out of date. I'm so out of date now, and they always laugh at me and they, crack jokes on me and all of that good stuff. But it's all fun and games. We all love each other, and I understand it. That's just part of it. So I don't have any hard feelings. I still talk to Coach George O'Leary nowadays.
Yeah, we had him on the show twice, actually. He was super nice to us. Obviously, I mean, we weren't running wind sprints or anything, but he was really nice. He spent like 2 hours on the phone with us talking about UCF and answered every question. Yeah. I mean, he had a good personality. He made us laugh. He told good stories. He was good to spend some time talking to.
I'll tell you what. You remember earlier in this podcast, I was telling you, that there was a different O'Leary from when he came to my house. And then, of course, from, when I was playing and all of that nature, right? Well, now I get to talk to the same George O'Leary that was in my house. So he tells me, the reason why he was so hard on us was he had to keep us in check, because, it's so easy as a, 18, 19, 20-year-old kid to get in so much trouble outside of, being under the supervision of the coaches. But he did a great job, man. I was terrified of Coach O'Leary for the entire time that I was there. And even when I talked to him, I think for the first time in like 10 years, last year, I still got super nervous, like I was missing a meeting when I first got on the phone with him. And then I finally, calmed down and realized that, what he did was for a reason. And the numbers don't lie, man. We won the first 2 conference championships in school history and the first bowl game. We also beat the first-ranked team, first-ranked opponent in UCF history. I have no complaints, man. I love Coach George O'Leary, man. He made me really tough physically and mentally. And, he still helps me out to this day in the coaching world.
All right, my last one for you. What is one movie that makes you laugh every time you watch it?
Coming to America.
That's a good choice.
Yeah.
That's a good choice, yeah.
I didn't like the second one that just came out, though, was weak, right? I mean, nothing's compared to the original.
So Coming to America is a movie that I don't think I can watch a sequel to because the first one was so well, put together, and it's just a classic. But I haven't watched the second one because I just don't want to, go into it with super high expectations of the first one and then be let down. So, Coming to America is the one that I just still can't stop laughing at. And it came out the same year that I was born in 1988.
Yep. Yeah, that's one of my favorites, too. All right, I got one more. If you had access to a time machine, would you go back in the past or would you go to the future? Where would you
go? Ooh, I would go to the future. I would go to the future. Because I finally found a profession that I know is my purpose in life, and I know that and I have the confidence that I'm going to be very, very good at it. And I have 2 beautiful children, a daughter who's 10 now, and a son who is 6. So I would be anxious to see what they're doing, in the future as well. So I would definitely jump forward instead of backwards.
Nice.
Well, Brian, this was a lot of fun, man. We appreciate you taking so much time and walking on memory lane. And obviously, you're one of the guys who represented UCF the right way, and we definitely appreciate that. And I know you probably got a lot of stuff going on this fall, so you might not be able to get back to UCF for a game with all your coaching responsibilities. But hopefully we'll get you back in the bounce house soon, man. But we appreciate you for taking the time to join us.
Man, this is outstanding, guys. Listen, no matter what, don't stop, because this is a great thing you guys have going on, man. It was a pleasure. Anytime you guys need me, you guys have my phone number. Just lock it in, or you can reach out to me on Instagram and all of that good stuff. But you guys are awesome, and I had a great time.
All right, that's, ladies and gentlemen, Brian H2O. Thanks a lot for joining us.
Thank you.
I'm Jeff Allen. Join me each week for unique yet common sense opinions on sports on the Jeff Allen Sports Talk Podcast. We will break down the sports world minus the hot takes with prominent guests and my stable of sports guys. It's sports conversation the way it should be. Search Jeff Allen Sports Talk wherever you get your podcasts, or go to jeffallensportstalk.com.
Okay, sons of UCF, both of you, you are the foe.
All right, everybody. Cow of the Week will be with you in just a few moments. You can always wait for a couple of cows here. But Mike, Brian Waters, a fantastic conversation. I just can't get off the visual of him and George O'Leary and Huxtable just scarfing down some chicken wings in his living room. George getting the sauce all over him and trying to figure out how to get it off, and maybe some sweet tea to wash it down. I really wish there was a photograph of that.
Yeah, I would love to see O'Leary on a recruiting trip, man. Seems like, that would be some entertaining stuff. But Brian H2O, Brian Agua, as I like to call him, very, very good interview. He was a very, very good one. He had some cool stories in there, too.
Yeah, just the passion that he had for UCF. You just hear it in his voice, just how much UCF meant to him, how much playing with those guys meant to him. How much being a part of the Knight family meant to him, and that's always really cool to hear. That we obviously root for these guys, and then they leave our lives or whatever. But it's cool to see that those memories and those feelings never leave some of these guys. And Brian doing some coaching now up at Franklin Pierce University. Maybe there's a slew of UCF guys out there coaching. Maybe one day we get him back down to Orlando. But it was definitely good to catch up with him. And I was actually dying to know. We should have asked. I wonder if he gave a bad haircut on purpose at all. Like, I wonder if Calabrese came in after throwing him a bad ball and he was like, "Oh, you fade, huh? Okay, cool." And just like, "Oops, sorry about that. We're going to have to shave it." You got to wonder if he gave anybody a bad haircut.
No, because then the word would start getting around that, he's losing his touch. And, well, maybe he would, like you said, he didn't want to give haircuts after a while. Maybe that could have been a little I don't know.
I feel like it's a punishment though. You can't tell me that, like, if it's, let's say Brian Waters was on the team last season, and after the Memphis game, Obarski's like, "Hey, can I get a little cleanup around the neck here?" That Waters isn't shaving him balls.
Maybe just nicks him up a little bit. Oh, sorry, you got cut here.
Yeah.
But
okay.
I don't know. A whole bad haircut.
The razor slipped. I'm sorry about that. We're gonna have to shave it all. I don't know. You never know. But either way, it was good to catch up with Brian Waters. Make sure you follow him on Twitter. I think he's at Coach Waters on Twitter, so you can find him there and keep tabs on him, Mike. But Cow of the Week time. I'm excited because you actually, very excitedly, you said you already have a cow. Typically, before we record this portion of the show, we sit here for 5 minutes and try to find cows. But you're prepared with a cow. So you've had 2 weeks for this. I'm sure you've been rehearsing and practicing and researching. So what do you got for Cow of the Week?
That's right. I told you I've been very prepared for this whole show. Here we go. Team USA basketball.
Here we go. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. What the heck is going on with our basketball team? We lost to Nigeria.
We did.
Nigeria.
Yes. By
a score of 90-87. This is a Team USA team that's got guys like Kevin Durant on there.
Yes.
Damian Lillard,
yep.
Draymond Green, all-stars up and down the roster. This is not your dad's dream team, though, right? It's not. The whole roster is not the best team we have to offer, right? I mean, there's no LeBron on there. There's no Steph Curry on there. Guys just don't want to do it. I get that the season just ended for a lot of these guys, right? And a lot of people have injuries they're dealing with. I think we might just have to get to the point where we just go back to the college kids. No? Are you with me on this one? Or if we're not sending our best team out there, then let's not embarrass ourselves, because this team's not going to win gold, I don't think. We're losing to Nigeria. Nigeria's a team we beat by 80-something points a few years ago. And now all of a sudden they're beating us? How is it that different, right? You think maybe they got a little bit better. Maybe they make it like a 30-point game. Okay, or we had to play all the way to the end. Maybe we win by 10, 15. You're telling me now they're beating us after we're beating them by 80-something points? I think teams like Spain, Argentina, these guys might kick our ass in this tournament. We might end up getting embarrassed.
Well, before I answer your questions, can I quickly tell you my cow of the week?
Yeah, go ahead.
It is the USA men's basketball team who, while we were recording, lost to Australia 91-83. We are now 0-2 in the exhibition season. So we both have the same cow of the week, although neither one of us knew
this
it.
This has never happened.
That's correct. We were 54-2 in exhibitions leading into this. We've now lost. We've doubled the loss total in the last 3 games.
Wow. What can you say about these guys? I mean, I know they said that they're testing for marijuana, right?
I don't know. Maybe.
Jakari Richardson. Have they tested this team? Because I'm pretty sure a lot of these guys, they may be on it during the game. Because what other explanation do they have to be losing to teams like this? We may not medal in basketball, men's basketball in the Olympics with professional players. This is embarrassing. I think this is it for this whole dream team thing. You can't even call it a dream team. Because I looked at the roster, and I named some of the big names on there. There's guys on there I've never heard of. I know I'm just a casual fan and stuff, but you want to pull up the roster here? I don't know who some of these guys are.
I can go roster if you need it. I mean, so you've got Durant, as you mentioned. Damian Lillard would be another name you would know. Bradley Beal, Jason Tatum is another name that's out there. Bam Adebayo, Zach LaVine is on the squad. But you are missing a lot of the bigger guys. LeBron's not playing. Steph Curry's not playing. Carmelo, who's typically really good in international play, he is not playing. So you've got a handful of guys who are opting out. Kevin Love's actually on this team for reasons only known to Kevin Love. And so it's not the best constructed roster ever. And that obviously is proving true. These guys have not had a lot of training camp. And so there's some thought that said, hey, these guys haven't had a chance to really play well together. And so maybe they just need some more time gelling. Greg Popovich tried to say, hey, you know what? These guys are going to come together. And they are still missing a couple guys who are playing in the finals right now. Chris Middleton and Devin Booker are both playing in the NBA finals, so they are not there right now. And as is Drew Holiday, excuse me. So, but you've got guys, Mike. You've got talent. Bradley Beal can shoot with the best of them. But you've got some curious Jeremy Grant, Draymond Green, Kevin Love on this team. So there's talent, but we both have the same cow of the week, 0-2 in exhibition play so far.
These guys think they're just going to put on the USA jersey, go out there and win every game by 50. It's not the case anymore. The original Dream Team, I mean, everybody that played against them, they were just all of these guys. What was the closest game they even played in that tournament? Probably like 30, 40 points.
Yeah, I think it was the medal game against Croatia, yeah.
So I don't feel good about this team. I don't think they're going to do anything, and they're proving me right so far. 0-2 against not even some countries are good at basketball, right? Argentina's pretty good. Spain's pretty good. What are the other ones that are pretty good that we need to look out for? It's definitely not Nigeria. Nigeria's not going to win the gold.
Yeah, Nigeria's basically the Miami Heat scrub team because there's 3 Miami Heat guys on the Nigeria team. Australia's not bad. I mean, they have some international guys that you probably heard of. Patty Mills is on that team. Matthew Dellavedova. Again, these aren't guys who are going to be like tearing up the scoreboard, but they've got some talent there. But that's the problem. Like, is the NBA is littered with international guys who can play really well. And so back in the Dream Team era, I mean, you had a bunch of guys who weren't anywhere near the caliber of the guys we had. But now international guys are all over the NBA, and some of these guys are stars. And, I don't think I think the Dream Team concept is probably long gone. Because I think that even if you rolled out the 12 best American men's basketball players, whoever they are, I think you're still going to get competition because the rest of the world has just caught up that much. Now, we should still be able to win if we rolled out our 12 best, but the rest of the world is pretty good. And you think about the NBA Finals right now, Giannis Antetokounmpo, you got Luka Doncic. I mean, those are 2 guys right off the top of my head who are international players who are playing really well. And so I'm not surprised when you're going to roll out Jeremy Grant, who, no disrespect, plays for the Detroit Pistons, that we may not be able to stack up with some of the best international teams out there right now.
Oh man, this is bad. This is bad. Our run has come to an end, I think, with this basketball team, and we still should be able to beat these teams. I mean, Kevin Durant's probably the best player in the world right now, right?
Yeah, he's top 3 for sure.
Yeah, Lillard too. Lillard's another one.
He can get buckets.
Yeah, so there should be no excuses, but like you said, everybody else is getting better. But I can't see how Nigeria has gotten 80 points better in the last 9. Something's wrong. Something's wrong. The other teams you want to tell me are good, okay.
Yeah, another underlying factor is this is Greg Popovich's first year as coach. Mike Krzyzewski previously was the head coach. He stepped down from that position. Now, it's not like Greg Popovich is any sort of slouch. So he's a pretty good basketball coach as well. He's won a handful of championships. So you would think that he'd be able to put this together. He actually had the nerve to say after Nigeria that maybe this was the best thing that could have happened to the team, and this would be a wake up call. But clearly they are still asleep because that's not happening.
If that's the best thing that happens to the team, what's this loss to Australia? Second best? I don't know, man. I don't know. Are you excited about the Olympics coming up, though? You get into this stuff?
I think so, because there's a void in sports in the summer. I mean, I'm not much of a baseball guy, even though I'm watching the Home Run Derby as we're taping this. I'm not much of a baseball guy. So, yeah, I don't mind a little come home from work, and it's something at least the kids can get into. Like, hey, let's watch the swimming. Hey, let's watch this. Hey, let's watch that. So I usually dig the Olympics. It's a good couple of week experiment.
Right. But the problem is where exactly is it this year? It's
Tokyo.
Somewhere on the other side of the world. It's in Tokyo. So, yeah, I mean, a lot of these events that they put on TV, they have already happened, right? You got a lot of tape delay stuff. Things happen in the middle of the night, and then they don't play it until prime time the next day. Some of that I don't like.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, it is tough if you want to watch it live because you won't be able to really watch it live. Obviously, NBC, or I think it's NBC, has the Olympics. They'll have it on probably in prime time. But you could have already figured out who won if you really, really wanted to. But, again, it's still a great experience to see. You always can kind of enjoy that. There will be no fans. That Tokyo had more concerns from a health perspective, so no fans, which will make it interesting. Not that you really kind of tune in for the fans, but to not have some of that fan interaction kind of going around some of the venues will be really interesting to see. But it's always great to see, the top athletes compete. I always think about the Olympics, Mike, in the sense of you work for 4 years and more than that usually, right? But you have to wait 4 years for one moment, right? If you're a baseball player, you have a bad at bat, you're going to be up in 3 innings, right? If you're a basketball player and you miss a free throw, just get fouled in the next quarter, you're fine. You miss a catch if you're Brian Waters and you drop a ball, just wait for the next one. If you just trip out of the blocks in track and field, you're done for 4 years. The finality of the Olympics is always kind of what grabs me.
Yeah, 5 years now for this year because
Fair, yeah.
They had to wait an extra one. Their whole lives change, and the difference between winning a gold medal and finishing 4th sometimes is like a 1/10 of a second.
Yeah.
Change your entire life. You win the gold, and you can make a lot of money off that for the rest of your life. You finish 4th, 5th. Nobody's ever heard of you.
Well, I mean, you can expect more Olympic coverage right here at the Sons UCF. We will have you covered wall to wall from the Tokyo Olympics. You can count on that. You can also count on Thursday night, Mike. The live variety of the Sons of UCF show will be on the internet with Trace Trelko in the fold. We'll be on Twitter. We'll be on Facebook. We will be on YouTube. We'll also be on our website, twonightsmedia.com. Make sure you check in Thursday. I don't know what we're doing yet. I don't know what the guest lists are. I don't know what it's going to be, but you're not going to want to miss it. I've already seen a bunch of the crazy questions coming in. We enjoy those. So appreciate that. Thanks for having that roll in. So make sure you subscribe to all those different social media platforms so you can find us when we're out on Thursday night, Mike. And that's a wrap, buddy. You did a great job. Your notes held true for the extravaganza that is episode 139. I can't wait to get to 140.
That's right. Yeah, thanks, man. You did pretty good of yourself today.
Thank you.
And we'll see you Thursday night. Everybody have a good one. Maybe you're not listening to this till after Thursday. So if you're not, then I hope you enjoyed Thursday night's program as well.
Go Knights.
Charge on.